Welcome to Stephen King's Saturday Night. Yeah, we were taking a look at, no, not that. No, not that. Hold on. Always prepared, aren't I? Okay, let's try this again. Ha, there we go. Silver Bullet, part of this collection that I have that has the Dead Zone. Stay tuned. Pet Cemetery, Silver Bullet, and Graveyard Shift. So, yeah, so Silver Bullet essentially is a movie from 1985. It takes place in 1976. Stars Corey Haim, Gary Busey, and essentially this small town, because it's a Stephen King story, is ravaged by a werewolf, and only Gary Busey and a wheelchair-bound Corey Haim can save the day. Well, we're screwed, aren't we, you know? Might as well say my prayers now. Does anybody know a good priest? Huh? Reverend Lowe? Seems like a reasonable guy. Don't see anything going wrong here. Anyway, yeah, so you have a narration from one of the main characters, Janie, telling us, like, she's narrating this movie, and so we already know she's gonna survive. There's that. Basically, it's a story about her brother said there was a werewolf, and so that's the story, werewolf killing people. Basically. So, you know, this cast, you got Corey Haim, you got Gary Busey, and then the actress who plays Jane, very familiar to me. I couldn't place it. I'm like, I saw what she looked like now, and I'm like, I know this woman. I know her from somewhere, and I'm searching the bowels of the internet. I go to IMDb, right? Because Wikipedia ain't got nothing on her. They don't have like a whole filmography. They just have, she this. So, looking on IMDb, and then I found it. Big Wolf on Campus. She was Violet Thorne in the episode where Merton meets this old lady who sets him up with her niece, who is played by this actress, but it turns out it's not her niece. It's a younger version of this woman who can basically suck the life force out of people, making her younger. This special thing of water from a spring in her own hometown. So, Road Village. But yeah, and she was the younger version. She was Violet. So I was like, yeah, that's it. It was bugging me though, because I couldn't know where she's from. So, like, where do we start this movie off? And I'm very confused because for some reason I thought Dee Wallace was in this. And then I'm like, no, that's Cujo, you dumbass. I thought Dee Wallace was the mother. And I'm like, where's Dee Wallace? That's the mom. Nan is her name, I guess. That's not Dee Wallace. I was thinking of Cujo. I don't know why I thought she was in this. I really don't know why. And then we're introduced to Corey Haim. He's in a wheelchair. And I really don't understand, like, this in Macamee. And I haven't seen Macamee, but, like, maybe they explain in Macamee. There's no real reason that the kid has to be in a wheelchair. You think that, especially in the Stephen King story, there'd be some kind of backstory that started this where he was in an accident. You know, you could connect it to the werewolf. Like, he saw something. They were on a road, there was a car accident, something jumped in front of the car, caused him to be paralyzed. Connects him back to this werewolf, you know what I mean? But there's really nothing. Like, there's really no reason for him to be in a wheelchair, other than he's a little more immobilized. But, like, he's climbing a tree somehow, and he still gets around. And the silver bullet has a double meaning. And also, obviously, the silver bullet to kill a werewolf. And then Silver Bullet is the name of his wheelchair. Both of them. He has a regular wheelchair, which he calls a Silver Bullet. And then his uncle, Gary Busey, gives him this very, probably not street legal motorcycle version that he just roams around, and his parents just let him have. But his parents are shown to be the most, like, infuriating kind of parents that let him do nothing. And they berate him for hanging out with his uncle. It's like, why? Oh, I wish you wouldn't drink around him. Well, it is Gary Busey. But still, like, and they're playing, like, you know, Texas Hold'em or poker, what do you want to call it. But they're doing it for baseball cards, not money. So he's not really being that bad of a, you know. And hey, this was the middle of the 80s, all right? Middle of the 80s, you're not fooling us, Stephen King, who co-wrote this movie. Nobody, no parent cared about the safety of their children in the 80s, man. I mean, come on. You could drink and smoke around them. The 80s, the decade where you could have birthday candles, a birthday cake with lit birthday candles next to an ashtray with a cigarette in it. That was the 80s. No one cared about their children's health in the 80s. Come on. It wasn't until the 90s the stuff really started getting all PC and stuff. So you're not going to fool me that they think Gary... Well, I could see a parent saying Gary Busey's not good to be around their child. But still, by the way, Gary Busey, best thing in this movie. He is just fantastic from beginning to end. As his character, he's an alcoholic. He's on the brink of divorce. And when his nephew comes to him and says, oh, there's a werewolf, he doesn't believe him, of course. But, yeah, and I also like the relationship between Corey Haim's character, whose name slips my mind, and Janie, where they're brother and sister. And usually brothers, you pick on each other. They're at odds sometimes. But, like, there's one scene in particular where, so the night before, the werewolf attacks him when he's lighting off fireworks. And he lights a rocket off into the eyeball of the werewolf and tells Janie about it. And even though she's skeptical, she still goes around and looks for someone missing an eye, because while she's not sure if she believes it, she can tell he believes it. And that's what's important. Like, even if you don't believe something, you could tell, like, you know, one of your loved ones, they truly believe that something is going on. So, you know, there's that. And, okay, I'm going to get to some of the negative stuff here. It's very obvious that it's the Reverend. Like, the way they frame this guy, the way they shoot this guy, the way this guy acts, from moment one, you're like, there's something odd with him. He delivered the sermon, and there's something about the beast is out, and it's like, okay, is he trying to say something? He has a nightmare that everyone turns into a werewolf, okay. Then the whole thing with finding someone with a missing eye, she goes through all through town, and finds that no one is missing an eye. And then we go to the Reverend, and as soon as you see him, his back is faced to her. It's like, oh, gee, I wonder if they're going to do some panic reveal. And then it cuts, and he's got like a white bandage on his eye. And it's like, so it's him. Obviously. And then we get a scene that I can't believe that this guy just got away with it. Like, he gets, like, Corey Haim gets his new wheelchair, he's driving down the road. The Reverend sees him, because they've been sending threatening notes, anonymous ones, but he figures out that it's Corey Haim for some reason. And basically, it's anonymous notes telling him to kill himself, so that there's no werewolf. I don't know how that was supposed to work, but okay. So the guy catches up with him, chases him down in broad freaking daylight, chasing down a kid in a motorized wheelchair with his own car. No one sees this, despite them being on an open road. No one is around. I find that to be bullshit, first of all. And then the guy chases him under this place where he's hiding. Corey Haim sees this farmer guy and yells for him. And when Corey Haim turns around, the Reverend's gone. But the farmer guy would have seen the Reverend's car. And when I try to tell Gary Busey what happened, he's like, nah, I don't. Are you seriously believing this stuff? And then, like, what color is the Reverend's car? Blue. And there's paint scraped off onto the wheelchair. That blue. And so that he now believes He now believes that something is going on. So he goes to the sheriff, played by Terry O'Quinn. And this is like one of the laziest sheriffs. I thought about this watching this. This sheriff seems so unenthused about his job and having to do stuff. That I was like, I wonder if this is actually Jerry from the Stepfather, right? I watched the movie. I listened to the movie Dust the podcast, so I'm all about breaching the barrier into the MDU and into the whole different multiverse stuff. So here we go, right? What if this is actually Jerry from the Stepfather? You know, what if he's like, oh, I'm pretending to be a sheriff so I can hook up with some hot wife, and now they're making me do stuff. Okay, I'm getting sick of this. So what if he doesn't actually die by the werewolf, but like, because they say he disappeared. They don't ever find his body. They just say that they haven't heard from him. So what if the werewolf? What if he believes there's a werewolf or something? He's like, oh, even if there's not a werewolf, I'll just disappear. And he gets attacked by him. He survives and is like, okay, I'm gonna fuck off now, and goes somewhere else. You know, meets a family, and then sets up the events prior to the first. This is 1985. First Stepfather film came out in 1987. So he fakes his death at the hands of the werewolf. He survives. He gets scratched, which I know there's difference in lore. Scratches can change you. Bites. It's bites. It's always bites. He doesn't get bit. He gets scratched. The werewolf thinks he's dead, but he's able to slink around and become Jerry and become the Stepfather, right? Jerry Blake, a different character first, a different name first, marries, then has that massacre on a Christmas morning, becomes Jerry Blake, and we have our Stepfather. It's just that, you know, it's just a thought. I mean, clearly the character dies. I'm not gonna argue that, but like, also I want to question. This is a fucking werewolf, and he kills the guy with a baseball bat. What? And it's like, oh, he's trying to frame them as murders or something. But then the next one, and it is part of a dream, but it's like, oh, he was torn apart. And I'm like, wait, what? And that was before, actually. But like, that was before. But is he framing? I don't know. But when he confronts Corey Haim, he does try to, like, justify what he's doing. Because one of his first kills in this movie is a woman who's trying to commit suicide because she's pregnant, I think. I don't know. And he kills her, and he's like, suicide is the greatest sin you can commit. And I'm like, murder? Murder? Yes? I could see, like, the greatest sin against yourself. There's, like, self-mutilation and torture and stuff like that, but, like, plain out suicide. I don't know. I know that in the Bible and stuff, you commit suicide, you go to hell. Sure, but also I think you commit murder, you go to hell too. So, I don't know. So after this, they tell him, the kids, they give him there's a silver cross and a little silver medallion thing. Melt him down, make a silver bullet. So he does, but he still doesn't believe him. And then we get the climax, if you want to call it that, because it's really nothing. Like, it's really, most of this movie is built up to a climax that's not a climax. It's, so, the parents just so happen to be going out of town. So, Garrett Busey is in charge of the kids, which, if you think he's not that responsible, why would you let him? There's a plot line that he may have quit drinking, but it's so in the background that it's practically non-existent. Maybe it was a plot line in the original script or something, and they took it out. I don't know, but he does stop drinking partway through the film. But it's not this big revelation. I'm gonna stop drinking or whatever. No. And we see them all asleep in the living room for some reason. And then just pass it watching TV or something. Happens to me all the time. I'll watch TV. Then I start hearing a noise, and Janie sees the werewolf outside, and she starts saying to the werewolf outside, and he's still skeptical, doesn't believe it. Even when the lights go, they're like, he's here. And he's like, oh, it's probably just a power outage. And then the werewolf shows up. And there's a brief moment where they roll attacks, and then they just shoot him in the eye. He turns back, and then, you know, the kids have a moment where Corey Haim says, "I love you, Janie," and she says it back, and she's like, "Until that moment, I could never say that to him. But now, we say it all the time." It's like, okay. My mom has always said that you need to tell your kids, tell your family members you love them. My grandma didn't always do that growing up. Later in life, she did, but I think it was mostly because of my mom, and you need to do that. So I can see that, but I don't understand. It's really, I mean, it was sort of a plot line, I guess, where they weren't that close, and they're always like yelling at each other. But it's siblings. Siblings always yell at each other and have some problems, you know. But you know, I do want to point out something weird. The score. This is the end of the movie, and you got this score. It's like, what is this? A score for a horror movie or a coming-of-age drama comedy? What is this? I don't know. Are you sure this was intended for a Corey Haim film or a Corey Feldman film, also starring Jerry O'Connell, River Phoenix, and Wheaton? That's also written by Stephen King. That's what it seems. Seems like the score in this should have been for Stand By Me and not this movie, but yeah, it's fine. I'll give it a middle of the road. I thought about saying it's pretty good. Gary Buse's performance almost pushes this to pretty good. He's fantastic. It's another good 80s film, but I'm still going to give it a middle of the road. Of course, I'm going to watch it again. Maybe it'll change. But I don't know. It's the middle of the road. It's the highest middle of the road you can get without going over into pretty good. That's it. I'll say it that much. It's not quite pretty good, but it's like right there. Just inch away. Sliver of an inch. You know what I mean? So that concludes Stephen King Saturday Night for this evening. My next review will be tomorrow. Another found footage film. But till then, what are your thoughts on Silver Bullet? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.